You are listening to the Call to Action podcast, where we aim to inspire, educate, and inform entrepreneurs and self-starters on tech and tips related to navigating this ever-changing world. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode 46 of the Call to Action podcast. I am your host, Shantae, and today we are having a fireside chat with Tim Radle, who is the author of 2 books, and also Bambi Sommers, who will actually be kind of like my co-host for today. And Bambi is a published author and also an editor. Now, before I bring our guests onto the show today, I have a positive mindset affirmation that I'd like to share with you all. So here is the positive mindset affirmation for episode 46 of the Call to Action podcast. I have faith in myself, and I know that the path that I chose will take me towards my destination. Now, those are available on planmindfully.com, where you can actually purchase your very own set of printable positive mindset affirmation cards. If you missed episode 45 of the Call to Action podcast, as always, it is a must listen. My guest for that episode is Dawn M. Rivers, who is the founder and owner of Daybreak Yoga Studio in Bedford, Ohio, where she and her team hold daily classes, yoga teacher training, workshops, and events. She hosts yoga retreats in Ohio and in beautiful Puerto Rico. Now, on that show, she shares the benefits of yoga, as well as some techniques that you can do to integrate yoga into your daily life. Take a listen to this clip from episode 45 of the Call to Action podcast. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
That just goes to show the power, like when you set your
Yes.
mind to something, that you can achieve it. I love hearing stories like that. To me, that's inspiration right there. That is
But this is the
inspiration.
thing that people don't understand, because I didn't say this part. After I graduated,
Again, you can hear the full episode on ctamarketing.biz. When you're there, click on podcast on the main menu to access that episode, as well as past episodes. As mentioned in the intro, I have Tim Radle and Bambi Sommers. Tim Radle was born in 1976 in Cleveland, Ohio. He grew up in the city of Hudson, Ohio, southeast of Cleveland. He attended the Ohio State University, studying music. Yes, this Ohio kid is indeed both a Buckeye for life and a fervent Browns and Indians fan. He lives with his mini-Brady Bunch family in a fairly constant state of chaos in Willoughby, Ohio. Timothy published 2 books, The Life of Olaf Wanilia in 2018 and Careening Humanity into Oblivion, Prelude to Debauchery in 2022. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Tim and Bambi to the show. So guys, welcome to the Call to Action podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm great, Shantae. Thank you.
I am good. I'm excited. because we're doing something new today. So this is going to be really fun.
We had fun the last time we talked.
So
Yeah.
one thing I will do, we did, Bambi. You were so much fun. I feel like I'm always talking to a friend when I have you with
I
me
feel the
anyway.
same-
So this is
Yeah,
going to be a
I
blast.
feel the
just
same
know it.
way about you. And Tim is my friend, so my in real life friend. So it'll be fun.
It will be. It will be. Now, Bambi, I know you've already done the icebreaker. So what we're going to do is we're going to break in Tim with our icebreaker. So Tim, the icebreaker I have for you is, if you could visit any fictional time or place, which one would you pick?
Well, I'm going to do some shameless self-promotion here, and you're going to love this, Shantae.
Okay.
So, in my new book, one of the places I write about is a planet called Pi, P-A-I. And I can certainly dig into this some more, but the way that the image of Pi came to me was this world that was just pure. A place where its inhabitants lived for hundreds of years because there was nothing to inhibit their health.
Wow.
Something, a place like that that's just breathtaking, where the air itself fulfills you, um, and honestly, just its beauty sustains you, is something that I think would be pretty special to experience.
You know what, Tim? I think I'd be with you on that one. That actually sounds like a beautiful place, and I'm sure very peaceful.
It's
I would assume. Can I
I
assume that?
you absolutely can assume that. Yes.
Okay, okay, good, good. Now I want you to go deeper into that.
And having read Tim's book, I'd like to be there
Yeah,
too.
doesn't it sound nice, Bambi? It's like to just live long and healthy.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, sounds good.
yes. And if you read his book, that is the perfect planet.
Yep.
Wow. So give us details. Since Tim, you wrote this book about this perfect place called their planet, right? Called Pi.
Yep.
Give us more detail about the setting of Pi.
So Pi itself is one of what, one, two, three, four different planets that I write about. Um, Pi is essentially just a giant natural world with not a lot of inhabitants. Lots of valleys, lots of mountains. It lives. It's in a binary star system, so there's two suns in the sky,
Mm,
and it's the setting of some pretty tremendous growth for my main character.
wow. Okay, so not to give away too much about your book, but just give us a little bit about your main character.
Sure. Okay. So the main character in my new book is actually the grandson of the character in my first book, The Life of Olaf Wanilia. His name is Paul Glass-Beret, and in my first book, Paul's introduced as Olaf's grandson, and really in that introduction, you only learn that he's special. You only learn that perhaps there's more to this child than just being a human child. And I, as I wrote that, I decided that perhaps there was a story there that could be experienced sooner than later. So I'm always in a state of writing. Right now, I've actually got four different books that are in process. I've got a blog that is in desperate need of attention, and I basically stopped all of my other projects to start writing this book. Kind of took over, and I'm kind of happy it did because Paul is a special character. I love writing his wit, um, and I truly cannot wait to see where the story ends up.
Awesome. Okay, so Paul was introduced in the life of Olaf Wanilia, and then you fully wrote him into the next story in the Careening Humanity into Oblivion. Is that what you did?
That is what I did. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Baby, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Um, no, because I don't want to give away too much either. But it's really Tim has a really interesting imagination. Like a pretty creative mind, that's for sure. And I noticed we all believe, well, most of us, I think, believe parallel universes and stuff, but Tim puts his whole new spin on it, and it's just really creative and imaginative.
Interesting. Okay, so that leads me to my next question. So, Tim, Bambi says you have this really vivid imagination, and you're right, Bambi. We all, I would say, I agree that we do, agree to there could be, parallel worlds and universes out there. Um, so,
Sure.
yeah, definitely. So, Tim, as far as like your influence or inspiration, what what influences you? Is this something that you've already were into before, or was it something that you read or saw in a movie, or like, you know what, I can write about like this, or use this style of writing? Like, what got you there?
Well, it's a really interesting question, Shantae. For Paul, it was kind of an extension of what I wrote with Olaf. Um, my first book, in its own way, kind of explored an angle of what could be, and I kind of took the spirit of that, and I extended it with Paul's character in a way that I will be very honest with you. I let it flow. There's entire sections of that book that there's a couple places in particular that I could feel, and I could feel for weeks before the words were on the page. Um, there were there are parts of that book that I think come from a very deep subconscious place. But I will tell
Mm.
you that in everything that I write, it doesn't matter what it is. If I can't feel it, if I can't if I can't feel the story, like truly and completely feel the story, and I can't, as I read it back, as a reader, I can't feel the story. It doesn't. The words don't get written. So I mean, my process is one of feeling. Where the feeling comes from, it's a deep subconscious, deep connective thing, and I love it. I love being able to just dig into a place and just explore.
That sounds really interesting. I'm actually sensing a connection with your study of music, with you saying you feel, and then with the way that you're writing. Like I'm sensing a connection there. That's very interesting. So let me ask you this: like as a kid, I want to go back. So as a kid, were you like one of those like creating worlds, with your GI Joe figures or toys and things like that? And then like, could you like see, when you were playing, if you played with action figures? I'm assuming you did, but let me know if I'm wrong. But were you that kind where you could like create a whole world and like have a whole scene and pretty much create a movie with your action figures, kind of like what we did with dolls? Probably Bambi, you probably did that too. But did you do that, Tim?
Oh,
Like as a kid?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, with
definitely.
Transformers, absolutely. I had a whole set of Transformers as a kid, and yep, there were entire battles, and there was destruction, and it was a thing.
That's cool. And I think like imagination is so powerful, especially as a writer. Like you guys, you both, like you're authors and you write stories, and to be able to take that out of your thought in that realm and bring it into words, but still make it so that people, when they're reading it, can actually feel what you're reading. I think to me that makes a really good book. I've talked to other authors too that have written books, and they say that people would write them and say like they were literally crying when they read their book, or they just felt so much emotion. But yeah, if you can pull a reader in, I think that's really good. And it sounds like you got that down,
I think
Tim.
that
He does. He does. And I have to say that a friend of ours, we're in a writers group together. That's how Tim and I know each
Hmm.
other. And we have Ken Biltz is with us. And Ken always tells everybody that Tim is his favorite author, no matter, across the board. And he said that he cried in his book, like literally cried. So Tim
Wow.
makes men cry.
Oh, Tim, that's powerful.
well,
Oh
It's
my.
good though. As a writer, that's a wonderful thing.
Yes, I don't think I've heard that one before.
it's a profound
Wow.
it's a
So
profound
Tim,
compliment, and I love Ken like a brother. But it's still it's up there in terms of the things that have touched me in a very very I don't even know what to say, Ken. If you hear this, I'm so very grateful that I know you, that you were in my life, and that I can call you a friend.
oh, that's so sweet. Wow.
Yep, and it's true. It's true. The three of us try to get together once a month, and we've written together, but mostly at this point, it's just to get together, just to be with each other and talk.
That's important. Like surrounding yourself with people who get what you do. And you guys are doing it.
Yes,
That's good. That's really good.
yes.
Wow, Tim. That's awesome, baby. You guys, I'm inspired. I mean, wow, to cry and read a book. I don't think I've ever done that before.
As an editor, I sometimes tell my clients, I hate that you did that because, I would be crying or whatever. So yes, I cry when I edit. And I've made myself cry when I've written, and I've made myself laugh. And Tim's book is not only, yes, you do need tissues at certain places, but it's also got a great sense of humor, which is my favorite. A sense of humor is my favorite thing.
Wow. So you got both ends. You got the tears and you have the laughter and wow, Tim. So how long does it take you to write these books? I mean, you got like you said you have 4 in the works right now?
Yeah. You know, I also have a full time job. So writing is usually a night's, weekends, sometimes early mornings activity. Um, and that limits my speed, if I'm being completely and totally honest.
Mhm.
For there for a while, my average was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 words a day. Um, I think at my top, the top was like 12,000 words a day, and
Wow.
I
Yeah, it's impressive.
usually, so I want to say Olaf clocks in. I'm gonna butcher this number. I think it's like around 230,000 words, and Paul's book comes in like around 155,000 words. And I believe Paul's book, it was from start to finish, pre edits. I think it was about 4 months.
Wow. So you have a full-time job, got a family, and you're writing all these books and making people cry.
Well, I'm also making people think. You know,
Mhm.
the thing that the emotional parts, the shocking parts, the funny parts are all augmented, I hope, by this human willingness to just consider. You know, I think that
Mhm.
we've been so in a sense of division, or a sense of stress with COVID, or a sense of something not positive. And if there's even just that little glimmer of being able to pour yourself into somebody else's words and just feel and think, it's the perfect antidote for the human inside all of us that just need something different than reality.
I agree. I agree. I think that's what people read too, and probably watch movies, but sometimes you want to escape from the madness and you want to go into a place where you can, snuggle up, read a good book, or in some cases, like listen, if you do Audible, listen to a good book, or watch a good movie, but just to step away from the madness, get some popcorn or ice cream or whatever, to float your boat and just go off somewhere else, in another world and live in that person's world, for that moment or for those moments while you're doing that.
I agree. And Tim, you said something that was perfect for your book. It gives you something to consider. And I like that kind of book. If it makes me think of something that I hadn't thought about before, then that's one of my favorite things. I like that. And yours does that.
Oh, thank you, Bambi.
You're welcome.
So now, guys, okay, I just want a nugget. Give me an example of something that you're referring to. Like something maybe about the planet pie that could kind of reveal just some of the landscape. What's it like? I know you said that, people are healthy or the beings, probably not people, right? These are beings that live there. Do you
Well,
use humans?
so secret sauce. I'm fascinated by the fact that, just our satellites, our not our satellites, maybe some satellites and telescopes have found hundreds hundreds of planets surrounding stars in the Goldilocks or the habitable zone. It's maybe thousands at this point.
Hmm.
To think that, and I mean, even if we go back to some of the movie series, like there was one of the Star Wars films that I forget which character was involved, but they flew to this planet and just it rained constantly, and the planet just was in a constant state of precipitation. It never There was nothing else. It was just rain. Um, I thought, what if really there's these worlds out there, and no one can necessarily tell me I'm wrong, but what if there are these planets out there where there hasn't been this race of beings that polluted the heck out of it and did everything they could to destroy it or mine every ounce of what was natural out of its core.
Mm-hmm.
What would that be like? And what honestly would Earth be like if the Industrial Revolution had never happened? Not to say
Mm-hmm.
that it's a bad thing, because I think you can make an argument to on both sides of this equation. But if you just consider, what would our planet really be without asphalt? What would our planet be without concrete and planes in the sky and cars on the road that in their own way are just giving us cancer?
Yeah,
You know,
pollution. Yeah.
it's an interesting thing to think about. And so pi is in no way, shape, or form related to the constant. This is not a reference to 3.14 and all the other characters that follow it. Um, and I couldn't tell you why I name the planets the way what I do. It's sort of a point in time feeling, I guess. Um, no, pi is the character that you meet there is 230 years old, and he's spry. He's able to function, um, and he's out there, and he likes his time in the sun, and um, it's I guess a referendum on peace. It's a referendum on what might be out there, um, and it's also a referendum on what maybe our notion of reality needs to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And just kind of to go back when you were talking about like if things were different on this planet and if people, I guess, were more aware and more cautious of how they use resources as opposed to just stripping them, and not being mindful of replacing or only taking what you need, so, or doing things a certain way so it can grow back, when you're talking about plants and trees and things like that. But yeah, I like that. I like what you've done. That sounds very interesting.
Thank you.
Hmm.
It also goes along with, we do things on autopilot all the time. We eat on autopilot, we sleep, we do all this stuff. I don't even think a lot of us get out and really enjoy the sunshine or anything half the time anymore. It's more of a, oh geez, I got to trudge myself to work,
Hmm.
But when Tim writes about these different worlds, it really makes you see that what you're doing, you could actually change and make our world better or worse.
Yeah. Cool. Cool.
You'll like this, Shantae. You would like this book. Mhm.
I'm definitely getting that vibe. I like that kind of stuff. I like that out there. Kind of, you just, something that gets you out of the norm.
Yes, it definitely does. It's not the normal kind of book, I'm looking forward to seeing what else Tim will write because, okay, I edited his last book. I didn't know him in order to edit his first book, and I have it on my TBR list, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet,
Hmm.
the first one. But there were four of us in our writing group, and we wrote a book together, like four different stories, but, and so it's interesting to see they were short stories, and it's interesting to see what everybody wrote because I think that a lot of us in that wrote out of our norm. And it's interesting to see how everybody's brains work out of that because, for instance, it's easy for me to say, I write romance thrillers, and I did not write a romance story for this book.
What did you write,
And,
Bambi?
and it was kind of a, I don't know, a thriller kind of thing, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
No romance, no
But,
abs.
but there, no ads. God, I'm known for that. That's terrible. I have to stop that. But we also, the three of us in the group are writing a book together now. And we drew numbers. And I wrote the first part, and Tim is working on the second part. And when he's done, it will go to Ken, and Ken will end it up. And so it's interesting to see what we do with the characters.
So it's all gonna be like based on like one story together? Like the three of you gonna just write
Oh,
one
no,
story?
it's one story, but I wrote my part, and then Tim will take it with his imagination from there, and then Ken will kill everybody off. So I tease him about that because he kills a lot of people off in his books, and they're
Oh.
really good too. But so I can't wait to see what happens with that. So
Yeah, that sounds
just the
cool.
development with the three of our minds, and we don't sit down and discuss that book. We don't say, well, I'm doing this with it. I have no idea what Tim's doing with my character that I made up.
Oh, so Tim.
So should be lots of fun.
Yes. So so
He
Tim,
probably won't tell us either. He's sneaky like
oh, I
that.
was gonna try to get something out of him, but I don't know.
Go ahead, try.
So Tim, you have
Go
something
ahead.
to add about like what you're doing with Bambi's work?
Oh, we're just, we're having some fun.
I guess you're right, Bambi. That's all I'm gonna get.
Yeah, he does not give up secrets, that's for sure.
That is so cool. That's awesome. That's awesome. So now
It's really nice.
What'd you say?
I said it's really nice.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this, Tim. Now, being a writer, how long have you been writing?
Well, I mean, books. It took it took a whole lot of guts for me to release uh, my first book, and I mean, to be honest with you, I've been writing consistently in notebooks since right around. Well, I wrote when I was in elementary school. I wrote when I was in high school. I wrote a little bit during college. I wrote a ton right after college. And I mean, really, the formal, I'm doing air quotes, the formal stuff started within the past 5 years.
Okay. Okay. So now I was going to ask you a different question, but I'm going to come back to that question because you had me think of something else when you made a statement about you being kind of shy to release your book. So what would do you think or why were you shy about that? Was it fear of judgment or was it just nervousness? Like why were you afraid to release that first book?
You know, I think that there was probably a little bit of fear of judgment, but at the same time, if go back to what I just said with all this writing I've done, it's always been it's been selfish. It's been, it kind of off the cuff, not diary entries by any means, but a lot of the more abstract work that I've written is it's so personal that I don't know that I ever really would release it.
That's understandable. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely understandable. I get it. Some things you're just writing just to get it out, but it's not something you want to share with other people.
Right. And I mean, some of it I think is pretty darn good. And I still don't think that I would throw that out into the world because I don't know how to explain it otherwise, Shantae, and I apologize for that. It's literally just this part of me that I think that there are some parts of my creativity that I need to hold on to. And to be honest with you, that first book was born out of something exceptionally inappropriate that I will not talk about. So much so that the character of Olaf did not start off the way he did. It was more a farce, and it was more it was horrifically filthy. And I stopped after maybe about two chapters, and I thought, if I ever really do release this and my daughters read it, how is that going to look? And um, I couldn't I couldn't live with the fact that something that would be so potently offensive, because it was potently offensive, um, would find its way into the world. And so it's almost in one fell swoop. I used kind of this angle of creativity to be just expressive in a not terribly healthy way. I made this point in time decision to just clean up my act and make a run at actually being an author. And I'm pretty proud of what it became.
That's good. That's
I
really
had no
good.
idea. That's interesting, Tim. You've never told me that story before. But I want to add something to what you just said, and it has nothing to do with things being inappropriate because I've never read anything that you've done that was inappropriate. But I think when I read an author's stuff, sometimes it gives me a little glimpse inside of them. But most of the time, I don't want to say it's just a story because, it's so much more than that. But Tim's is even beyond that, because when I read Tim's, I was surprised. I was surprised at the depth that he thought, because, Tim's fairly quiet, in case you haven't noticed
I
that.
know, I can tell.
By now.
Yeah.
He's fairly quiet. And occasionally he'll say something that makes me want to fall on the floor because it's so funny or out of character for him,
Yeah.
But he's the depth surprised me and showed me a little bit inside his mind that he was somebody that I wanted to get to know, somebody that I knew that I wanted to be friends with. So I can imagine him writing what he feels is his feelings into something and not wanting the world to see it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a deep thinker.
Yeah, I'm getting that. I'm actually recalling our first conversation when we were talking about the book. We had our initial call, and I sensed that from Tim. So just you guys talking now and hearing him talking, the music tie in and just how he feels. Tim, I can tell you're a person of depth. I can see that. Yeah, I sense that. I definitely sense that. So Tim, the question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Bambi. That was truly touching. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, well, I think that way about you. At least I thought you did, because you just surprised me. I mean, you're a little bit of a biker, and the stories I read about those are not what you are. And I mean that in the nicest way that I possibly could. But, you're just, you have a depth to you that I don't think that a lot of people get to see.
And Bambi, I'll be real honest with you. That's intentional. That's really intentional.
Yeah, I can see that with you, that it is. And, and I get that. I get that a lot because I used to be a lot more private than I am now. But I was also a much bigger bitch than I am now.
Not Bambi.
When I felt that way. It's true, you guys. I'm sorry.
I will not have it. I cannot. You will not ruin my image of you. I cannot see that. You are one of the sweetest people. I really cannot see that. I'm so serious.
Well, they say as you get older, you lose your filter of what you're going to say, I've actually become mellower and gotten more of a filter, because when I was like 16 to probably 50, I never had a filter, didn't care, so wow. I think that, it's, I wasn't mean. I just didn't, don't ask me what you think, because I'm going to tell you, and I might tell you even if you don't ask me, kind of thing.
Oh, my.
So I know. So I've actually gotten more of a filter, and I've gotten to be a nicer person. And I now feel that kindness is probably the best thing that you can be.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. That's definitely something I learned in my life.
But Tim is, I think kindness was something I saw in him right away, so, and you can sense things sometimes in people that other people can't sense about them. And I took to him right away.
Yeah. Wow, cool. All this love in the show today. I might just grab some tissue just right now. I mean, I don't know. I'm just feeling all these heartfelt compliments and everyone's opening up.
Tim, are you still there, or did you hang up on us?
I left, Bambi. I left.
That's what I thought.
Oh, wow. I knew it was going to be a good one, guys. I knew it. We're just going to flow with it. It's all good. It is all good. So the question I was going to ask
I always said that if Shantae and I lived closer together, we would be partners in crime. We'd get in trouble together. Don't you think, Shantae?
Oh, you know it. You know it.
I know.
Definitely. I could see you. You'd be my bestie too.
Yep, I know.
Definitely, definitely. So, so,
Oh,
so, Tim, I was going to ask you this question before about like any advice that you would have for writers, like maybe someone who may have written a book and is afraid to release it, or anything else that you can provide. Like, what advice would you give?
I think for anybody who's reluctant to release work, find a beta reader. Find someone that you trust to read your work and give you honest feedback. Um, because I can tell you with my first book, I had a heck of a time with editors. And Bambi, I really wish you would have been available back then. We would have known each other back then because it would have made life very, very easy. Um,
thank you.
I started with a person I worked with who started as my first editor. She then left the project because she left the company I was working for, and we lost touch. I then found another editor online who actually did an unbelievably good job. And she served as really kind of my feedback for what was working, what wasn't working, and she became a fairly trusted advisor by the end of that project. And I think that for anyone who's struggling, you have to find somebody who you trust and let them read your stuff and let them tell you when it's time for that work to see the light of day.
That's very good advice. It's funny you brought up a beta reader. I just learned what a beta reader was because I had Tiffany C. Lewis, who's actually, she has a podcast called Beta Reader Bits. I think it's what it's called. Yeah, Beta Reader Bits. And I listened to her podcast and she talked about that. She talks about the different types of beta readers. And now knowing that, I think that's definitely important, that people do have a beta reader. You got to have somebody to read your work and to not be afraid to share it with them so that you can get that honest feedback. And then some advice she gave was really to not take things personal. They'll kind of sit on the advice or feedback that you get from the beta readers. So that's very good advice, Tim. Bambi, did you have any that you wanted to share about, anything for upcoming writers?
I completely agree that beta readers are important. You know what, though? I've written 9 books and I never had a beta reader until my last one. And I had, I think, 4 beta readers at that point. Um, I don't think that I would ever release a book without them now. But I think the biggest point with a beta reader is you cannot get offended. You're not allowed to be offended by what they say. It is one person's opinion. You know, writing a book is an art form and it's subjective, just like a piece of art that you would hang on your wall. So you can't be offended. You have to take it with a grain of salt, use what you can, throw away the rest.
That's very good advice. That's pretty much in line with what I got out of the Beta Reader Bits podcast. Is that same thing? Take the information and don't take it personal. I wish I would have known
No.
about a beta
And
reader. I at least released an audiobook
yeah,
last
well,
year, but it's a short book. I don't know if a beta reader would have listened but I don't know. I think I could have used some help with that.
yeah, it really, well, like I said, I did my first 8 without them, but I definitely will not do any more without them. The other thing, too, is don't be afraid of an editor. Editors aren't out there to tear apart your work. They're out there to make your work better with your words. And you do not have to take their advice either. If you decide that there's something that you like and they want to take out, well, then, you have every right to say, no, I'm going to leave that in. And that editor should be okay with that. So don't be afraid to put your book out there. Just get some advice before you do and do it.
That's very good. Very good. So I have another question for you guys about marketing your books. So, Tim, do you do like paid ads? Do you just use social media? Do you do interviews like what you're doing with me? But what do you do to market your book?
Well, honestly, Shantae, this is the first podcast I've ever been on, so thank you for that.
Oh,
Um,
yay. Thank you.
for the very first time, I actually used some people on Instagram to read and review my book, and I I honestly couldn't tell you whether it's worked. I honestly feel like I kind of got duped by a couple of these folks, and it's unfortunate because I think us authors want so desperately to just trust that the people that we find are going to actually do the work that we ask them to do.
Yeah,
Um,
especially if you're paying them, definitely.
well, there's unfortunately a whole lot of folks who are taking a whole lot of advantage of people who honestly just want some assistance. Um, I'm fairly certain that I paid the same person using three different IDs four
Oh
times.
no.
And shame on me,
Oh,
completely shame on me for not asking questions. But that was what I tried. I think out of everyone that I paid on Instagram, I think maybe two of them actually did what they said they were going to do. And so I sort of I've paused my marketing efforts aside from this podcast, because I'm so honestly I'm worn out, thinking about, is this next person who I'm going to essentially pay to buy my book, and then wait for 2 weeks for them to read my book, and then write some cursory blurb about my book on their page or their story, never write the review that they're supposed to in whatever platform they're supposed to. I know this sounds a little bit complainy, and I'm sorry, I've got a little bit of angst about this.
No, it's a lesson learned. I like to hear stuff like this because it's helpful, for other
Yeah.
people as well. Yeah.
I So for any other authors out there who are considering this, seems like there's a fairly large international conglomerate that all use the same PayPal ID, and I think if and they appear as two different people, or three or four different people. The one person used an avatar of a TV personality that I recognized. She's one of the people on HGTV, and so that kind of you know clued me in that I'm not essentially dealing with a real person.
Hmm.
I have used Facebook ads. In fact, I think the lion's share of people who actually follow me on my author page actually found me based on those ads when I wrote for my first book.
Okay, that's
Um,
good.
I've boosted posts. So I did my own little veiled attempt at pre-release marketing. Um, and part of it was to make fun of Ken, because I wasn't allowing him to see the cover. And so
Oh.
I used just filters on the image, and then I decreased the image, the filter on the image,
Hmm.
and by the day that the book was released, you could actually see the cover. So my marketing attempt was also prolonged torture of Ken Builds.
Wow.
poor Ken.
I know. You made him cry and then you tease him with your book cover. I don't know about you, Tim.
Well, so the gentleman who actually created the cover is an artist by the name of Jesse Burke, and I want to make certain that we mention him in this podcast, because this guy is, you talk about creativity. His talent is abstract visuals,
Oh,
and
cool.
it, crazy little bit of I don't think anybody knows this. So maybe 2 weeks after the book was released, Jesse reaches out to me and he's like, I don't know, this cover came to me. What do you think? And um, the title of my next book in the Careening Humanity into Oblivion series is something I haven't told anybody. His cover is actually perfect for what it was, and I sent him the title, and I think that he probably fell down because there's this moment of connection that neither one of us saw coming. He actually now can feel the subject matter of my books and create topical covers without us discussing a single word. So my voodoo witch magic is working.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. That is cool. That is really cool. You have to share your actually your books with me, your links, so I can put them on the website on ctamarketing.biz along with this podcast so people can listen and also know where to find your books. So
I'd
make
be
sure you
happy
get
to.
those to me.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, cool, cool. Um, I was gonna ask another question. Oh, as far as like you using social media, Do you promote yourself? Just you, like on Twitter or Facebook? Well, you said you do Facebook, but do you use Twitter as well or Instagram? Like you directly, not just doing paid ads?
I'm awful at it, Shantae. I'm awful at social media. Twitter, for the longest time, actually wouldn't allow me to log in. So I had this prolonged area of silence on Twitter, and it's really because I couldn't log in. I couldn't log in on a laptop. I couldn't log in on my phone.
Oh,
Finally got access again, and every one of my notifications were sort of um, I, I don't know how to say this otherwise. They're all OnlyFans notifications. So a whole lot of not very clad people wanting me to reach out to them, and that's what I was treated to when I first got back into Twitter. I've cleaned up most of that stuff, but Twitter is an enigma to me. Facebook,
oh, okay.
Facebook. I got so mired in some of the more political things that people were saying on my home feed that I quit paying attention. So I pay attention to groups. I wish people happy birthday, and I add a post or two to my author page maybe once a month.
Okay. Okay.
Instagram is probably the place where I do a little bit more. There for a while when my kitten was growing up, I used to post photos of him. I think pretty much daily. Apart from that, it's very light little bits of content that I put out there, and I'll freely admit that social media and my use of it is very suboptimal to promote my work, and I'm reluctant to ask somebody for help, but I'm getting closer to the point of actually asking someone to help me with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important. I will say, like with Twitter, and this is where Bambi and I connected. I like Twitter. I like the writing community on Twitter. Bambi, what do you think?
I do too. Yeah. Well, and that's where, I mean, frankly, that's where most of my clients have come from as far as editing has been Twitter. And I think the writing community is amazing. And I've made quite a few really good friends on there.
I have too. Yeah. Tim, we got to get you at least connected on Twitter. At least got to get on there because it's a pretty
Well,
good group in that
Well,
community.
I'm
yeah,
in
he's
there.
on there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Just
Are we
90%
connected?
of the
But
time.
he does,
I don't think so.
Well, we
mm,
got to get connected, Tim. We got
I
to
agree,
be.
Shantae.
yeah.
Yes. Yes, we got to get connected. So we'll make sure we do that after this show. Okay. Well, cool. This has been really, really good. So, baby, did you have any advice you wanted to add about that or?
No, you know what? The only ads that I do for my books is on Amazon, and I run very cheap ads. But I am selling a little bit. I mean, I'm not making tons of money, but my editing business is more important to me than my books. So if I have books to edit, and I almost always do, that comes before my writing. But I do advertise on Amazon just to make sure that it gets out there, because you're only going to sell so many to your friends and your family, and sometimes they're not even going to buy them. So you've got to get out there and find strangers
Yes.
who don't know you, and I think that's what Amazon has done for me. um, I don't like the fact now that you can do just the star ratings without doing a review. I don't, I mean, I don't care. You can have 5 stars across the board, but if you don't have any reviews that say, gee, this is about, or, I really like this or whatever, then I just don't like that.
Yeah, I think reviews are important too. I've made buying decisions
Yeah,
off of Amazon based off of reviews. And yeah,
absolutely.
and I've not bought something because there were no reviews. So it is important
Right.
that people do reviews on products and on books or whatever they're purchasing because it does help.
It does help. Yeah. But so Amazon's my thing. I figured if you're on Amazon, you're looking to buy anyway.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
there's so many of us on Twitter that are putting our books out, one after another, and talking about them, that I think it all kind of gets jumbled up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. But they're still a fun bunch of people to talk to.
It is. They're great. They are
Yeah, and I've
great.
gotten a lot of podcasts out of Twitter, out of the connections I made on Twitter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been good for me too.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so cool. So Tim, before we wrap up the show, can you give me your contact information where people can find you?
Oh, well, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is at tradle. You can find me on Instagram as Timothy Radle author. Um, and on Facebook, I've got an author page that I think is Timothy Radle author. And Shante, I will give you links to all the above for you to publish.
Thank you. And links to your books. They're on Amazon. So, right?
Oh, one other place.
Okay.
I also write on Medium. Um, so there's one story that came out of the Life of Olaf Wanilia that again is kind of a unstructured kind of series of different stories that have given me a whole lot of inspiration. It's Tales from the Chicken Farm, and if anybody has potentially read The Life of Olaf Wanilia and the phrase "tackle dummy" means anything to you, I urge you to go find that blog and have you a good laugh.
Oh, cool. Cool. Thank you. All right. So, Bambi, can you give us
Yeah.
ways to contact you?
Yeah, actually, everything that you would need to know is on my website, which is bambisommers.com. And Sommers is Sommers. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, but it's just easier just to go to my website and you can pick up my Gmail and everything from there and contact me, and I'll give you prices and everything that you need to know.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, Tim, I have one last question for you. And is that can you share any last words of wisdom that you can leave with us today?
Last words of wisdom. That is
Mhm.
that is exceptionally broad, Shantae.
Okay, maybe a favorite quote that you have.
Favorite.
Anything.
Um, well, to be honest with you, my favorite quote is something that Kurt Cobain said in Revolver magazine. My goodness, it probably was around 1993. And he was asked by the interviewer, um, "Are you intimidated by anyone?" And his response has always stuck with me. He said, "Everybody shits." And there is something within that statement that is so hysterically profound
It is. It's very true. Everybody does.
that I can honestly tell you that from the moment. So I was a junior in high school when I read that. I can tell you that. So my grandfather had no strangers, and I have endeavored to be like my grandfather. And I will tell you that that quote has allowed me to walk up to more people and be friendly with more people and just open with more people because it reminds me endlessly that we're all just humans.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's good. It's good you took it and used it in that manner to to connect with people.
Oh,
Well, look, I know it's twisted and I know it's silly, but I mean the little peek behind the curtain of my mind.
No, Tim. I
and
can see
there
it.
you go.
I'm definitely picking up the vibe on Tim. Trust me. Oh gosh. You guys are funny.
Oh,
So Bambi, do you have any last words
yes.
of wisdom, a favorite quote you want to share?
You know, there is a children's book called Everybody Poops. Did you know that?
No.
There is.
Oh my
There
gosh.
is. And I think it has to do with potty training or something, but yeah.
Okay.
No, I think this is just a good place to leave it, Shantae.
I think so too. Oh gosh. That's so funny. So yeah, poop is the subject for today, I guess. It's
Yes.
natural. Everybody does it, right? Oh goodness. I don't think anyone's ever said it on my show before, Tim.
Well, you asked me for a quote, Shantae. I got to remind you.
Uh-huh.
Oh gosh. Okay, it's all good. It's all good. This is gonna be a good one. Okay. Well, we'll leave it at that. And I just want to thank you both for being a guest on the Call to Action podcast. And it was a pleasure and a lot of fun. And I really did enjoy just our conversation. It was really good, guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Shantae.
Thank you.
Yes. So before we come to a close, I would like to mention two of my favorite podcasters. And one is York Campbell, and he is the creator of the Poetic Earthlings podcast. You can hear his podcast at poeticearthlings.com. You will hear in some episodes a familiar voice, which is myself. And I've done some voice work for him. So please check that out. It was a lot of fun. I've played different characters in his podcast. So just when you get a chance, check some of those out. And also, Tiffany C. Lewis, I mentioned her earlier. She is the host of the Beta Reader Bits podcast. And she's a new podcaster, just launched this year. And her podcasts are very interesting. She talks about beta reading. A lot of good advice that writers could definitely use. I wish actually I would have known her as well. Last year when I launched my audiobook, or actually in 2020 I launched it, but it would have been nice because I learned a lot just listening to her podcast. She goes into depth on beta readers. I'm like, this is very impressive. So if you get a chance, take a listen to her podcast. And this you can find it at betareaderbits.podbean.com. And then also finally, remember to visit planmindfully.com to get your printable positive mindset affirmation cards. And in case you didn't know, when you affirm something, you begin to stir the energies of the universe into action. And the positive mindset affirmation cards that you get from planmindfully.com are a tool to help you to bring positive changes into your life. And if you notice, I post them on my Facebook page, I post them on Twitter because I use them daily. So I just want to let you all know about that. And then to all the authors, entrepreneurs, self-starters, and everyone who is doing their thing, remember the code. The journey begins when you take the first step. Courage, optimism, determination, and enthusiasm are the tools that will help you along the way. Until next time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Call to Action podcast. Make sure to visit me at ctamarketing.biz. There you can find articles for entrepreneurs and self-starters on tech and tips related to navigating this ever-changing world. Until next time.